Hello, I'm Cheryl McCarthy. Welcome to One to One. In the United States, more than 23,000 young people age out of foster care each year, about 1,000 of them in New York City alone. They enter adulthood with few of the safety nets that other young people may take for granted and may possess few of the skills required to successfully navigate life on their own. Soraya Friedman Gonzalez is Executive Director of New Yorkers for Children, a nonprofit that supports young people who have aged out of foster care. Demetrius Napolitano spent 22 years in New York City's foster care system, graduated from New York University, and is a motivational speaker, writer, and meditation and yoga instructor. We'll discuss what's being done to help these young people achieve successful outcomes and what more needs to be done. Welcome. Soraya, tell me about the kinds of challenges that face young people who age out of foster care.
The youth that age out of the foster care system, some of them have graduated college, some have not. Many are young parents. Many of them are what any young person that age would face. But I think, post-traumatic stress disorder is a big issue for a lot of young people from their time housing and homelessness. Having enough financial resources to kind of support themselves, I think it's a pretty big leap, particularly if you had received support and then it's sort of like a cliff
Right.
at the end. Having a network of peers is also can be a challenge. And just having a support system around you, people that are going to kind of lift you up and be an emotional safety net around you. And so not having those things would be a challenge.
Right, and some of the statistics are not so great. There are some of them who wind up homeless. I'm not talking about just New York City, but nationwide.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Only half will be gainfully employed by age 24. Mm-hmm. Fewer than 3% will ever get a college degree.
Yep.
70% of the young women will be pregnant by the age of 21, and 1/4 of them will be incarcerated within 2 years of aging out. Mm-hmm. So how does your organization help them?
Our organization, we've been around for over 26 years, and one of the important parts of our work is we really try to fill an unmet need in the New York City child welfare system, and youth aging out of foster care has been a primary focus of the organization for a very long time. We're one of the only organizations that provides direct financial support to young people where they can really use the money as they see fit, so it provides them with agency. But that funding is also coupled with a youth academic advisor or someone on our staff that's going to provide emotional support and guidance. And so we serve about 1,000 young people a year.
Do you get in touch with everybody who's aging out of the foster care system in the city?
We connect, in a given year, there's approximately 700 young people that age out of the foster care system, and we believe we are connected with almost all of them through one of our programs. We have a lot of different programs. We support young people in college, we provide laptops, we provide scholarships, and then we also connect with young people that are aged out, maybe they're not employed and they're not in college. And we do that initially through an emergency financial grant that they may need because they're in a crisis. And the pandemic was, particularly tough on this group.
Now, federal law, and perhaps state law as well, requires that every foster care agency and all children who are in foster care are with some particular agency. Sometimes it's a nonprofit, sometimes it's a public agency. But each agency that oversees foster care is supposed to put together a plan,
right.
An age-out plan, I guess, covering things like, where they're going to live, what they're going to do in terms of pursuing education or job. So the fact that you're doing what you do, is it because there are a lot of agencies that aren't doing?
In New York City, the foster care services are subcontracted currently to about 26 foster care agencies. And they support young people typically until they're 21 years old, sometimes even a little bit longer. I think the work that New Yorkers does comes in to sort of support the agencies because often the funding ends at about 21, and it's that those years from 21 to 26 where the young people need the most support. And I think, the agencies are charged with creating a plan. I think many of them are focused on that. But I think there are a lot of sort of organizations that really work and partner with those foster care agencies to try to provide additional, more comprehensive, because everybody plays a role. So it would be hard or unfair to say they're not doing what they're doing, but I think it creates there's a village that really needs to come in. But I bet you Demetrius would probably have a much better kind of voice in that.
Demetrius, and how old were you when you aged out?
I was 22.
Okay. So what did it feel like when you knew you were going to be out, sort of totally on your own? And how did New Yorkers for Children help you? How did they factor in?
Yeah, great question. I think for a lot of young people, when you're transitioning from the foster care system to independent living, there's a lot of anxiety in that transition because you're considered blessed, if you will, if you have a residence, a home. But a lot of the kids, even when they move into their new home, they don't have the financial literacy or the ability to keep that home, but they typically don't know that immediately. So when I transitioned out of the foster care system, there was a lot of anxiety that I was having, but I was still thankful that I amassed a lot of supporters and people who helped me with that transition. I had my adopted parents, I have my former foster parents in Brooklyn, so I had a large network, and then also had New Yorkers for Children who supplied me numerous times with educational grants or financial support so that I could not only just get through school, but I can also have money for myself. And then also, as Sorority said, the emotional support was also crucial, knowing that if there ever came a moment where I needed the support of one of their staff members who, by the way, do a great job with fostering a great relationship with a young person, I knew that I can call them, and no matter if I'm out of the foster care system, they're going to be there and provide whatever service or help that I need. So
It's a safety net factor, right?
Exactly.
Because, everybody needs that. Even if you come from an upper middle class family, once you're out there, every now and then the money runs out, or you need, sometimes you need to go back home, or, you need people who can step up and help you out in times of emergencies.
Exactly.
Now, you spent 22 years in the foster care system. Were in 30 different placements. I think that included a stint in juvenile detention. You experienced a failed adoption when you were very young and where you were abused, struggled with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress syndrome, were put on medication. And despite all this, at age 27, you received a degree from NYU, you interned for a U.S. Senator, traveled around the country as a motivational speaker, started a nonprofit to help young people with yoga and meditation. What do you think are the factors that contributed to your success and a different outcome from a lot of other young people who age out?
So first thing, I'm a deep man of God, so I definitely give praise to my faith, and just always knowing that no matter what is it that I'm going through, I can always pray about it. I can lean on my brothers who are also in faith. Then secondly, I would definitely say I've always been really good with creating a network of people who rally around me and support me. So Sorority is definitely one of them, and then many others. And so I always knew that if I fell, I would always be, it wasn't like when I was younger and I fell, I would fall on the ground. Instead now, I'm falling into a wide safety net of folks who are going to do whatever it takes to help me succeed. And then lastly, I always credit my resiliency, because from a young kid, from being on my own from 2 years old on upwards, you can only imagine how many times I'm like, okay, I thought I had this person, or I thought I have this person, or that person. Instead, I'm on my own. So, all right, D, you got to push yourself forward. And so my faith, my network of friends and family and supporters who always lift me up, and then lastly, my resiliency to always not settle and get defeated, but to push myself and get back up.
It does seem, and then it's basically what you said, that the key for any young person who spends time in foster care is to latch on, to recognize and to latch on to whatever positive influences he or she has encountered over time. To know the people, recognize the people who are interested in you and are willing to help you and to really hold on to them. I was especially interested in your experience with the Amish family, the Greens, who were your last foster parents, and the Napolitanos. Could you tell me very briefly about each of those?
Of course. So I stayed with my first adopted family from 5 to 13. And my adopted mother, she figured that because I was always getting into trouble in the city and whatnot, especially I had an older brother who was running around with different gangs and whatnot. So she sent me every summer to the Amish, the King family, who I met when I was 5, and then I would go every summer from 5 to 13. And they was really the ones who cemented my faith. And it was always beautiful because here are these Amish people bringing in this little black boy who culturally we couldn't be more different. But while I was there, I was one of the, if not, I was the 11th child. They had 10 children. And so I was the 11th child. And they really, especially because back in my adoptive home, there was a lot of trouble and turmoil there. So now I'm in a home where I am the center of positive attention. And so I really navigated, or gravitated rather, to my Amish family. So I would go there every summer, and it was like a break away from the trauma and the pain that I typically experience for my adopted family. Fast forward now, from 13 to 22, I was in approximately 25 different foster homes. And then at the last home, when I was 19, I moved in with the Greens in Brooklyn, New York. And they resembled my first adopted family in a sense of having a massive family, about 10 kids, almost like 8 kids. And just being there with them and having mom cook every week, every day, and dad doing things around the house, and my siblings, we fighting, but we still love each other. And so that kind of healed a lot of my trauma because now I'm in a family that I feel at one. But then also, I also felt disengaged, disattached because of there being so many people and me wanting more of a kind of private kind of relationship with my parents. So then I found John and Katie Napolitano through an old mentor of mine's. And after the relationship blossomed, we started off as mentor and mentee. Then one night I just asked them, like, hey, would you guys adopt me? And they said, hey, we already feel like we adopted you, but if you wanted to be in paper. And I said, absolutely. And so I was elated to be able, more than anything. So my biological name is Tasharon Taylor. When I got adopted the first time, she changed it to Demetrius Johnson. I did not want to pass down my Johnson to my children and to my future wife. So when they came into the picture and knowing their last name being Napolitano, I was like, hey, that'd be perfect, Demetrius Tasharon Napolitano. And so the Napolitanos adopted me. And the last thing I'll say, when I told my foster parents in Brooklyn about the Napolitanos, I was nervous about it, thinking they're going to reject me. And I'll never forget, my foster mother said, Demetrius, the only thing you're doing is building your family.
I listened to the speech that you gave at King College in New Jersey, and you said 3 things are necessary for a young person to be successful in life. Admit you need permanency, have courageous conversations, be willing to forgive. What do you mean by that?
Oh, man, so I guess I'll start with the last one, the willingness to forgive. I mean, I think that if I didn't get to the point where I can forgive relatives for the abuse, or my parents, my biological parents, for the neglect which was forced upon me because of the drugs that they took at that time in Harlem, then I would be walking around with more trauma and more pain in this day. And so for me, more than anything, it was about, for my healing, to forgive them so I'm no longer holding on to those hurts and pains. And having those courageous conversations meant that I could, hey, ask the Napolitanos to adopt me, even if the prospect of rejection was there. But saying, you know what, this is what I need. I need permanency in my life.
And that was a courageous conversation
Very much
you had with them. Soraya, you've talked about some of the programs that New Yorkers for Children offers to age outs. Are there state and federal programs that are doing similar things, that offering really what you think are good support?
I mean, I think New Yorkers is, and it's not just because I'm the executive director, but I think it is sort of a one-of-a-kind organization in that, yes, there are a number of programs supported by the government, but what we do is a lot of our funding is private support, and it allows us to really flexibly provide support where it's needed, when it's needed. Things are changing all the time. Take COVID, when the colleges shut down, we had an existing program that really supported youth in college that had a financial emergency. We were quickly able to pivot that program, because it was private money, to support the need at hand, which was any young person who had aged out of foster care and was in crisis. And so we continue to do that. It's part of our mission. That is how we landed on a focus for youth aging out of foster care. But we also try a whole half of our budget is to these direct service programming, but the other half of our work is dedicated to piloting innovative approaches and different programs that are really important to the field. And so I share that as I think we're probably one of the only organizations that sort of serves this need in New York City and is open exclusively for youth aging out of the New York City foster care system, and being mostly private money. And I'd like to think that our staff and the team that we have, everybody's invested, from the financial officer. Everybody is involved in it. It's not just paper pushing. We're a tiny team. Young people come into our offices and they feel that they're welcome, and they can say hi to anyone and drop into anybody's office. So that's, yeah.
One of the proposals that I read about was that for each person aging out, to supply each person who's aging out of the system supply them with a, quote, fostering independence account, or FIA, which would be a cash account funded by the government for a period of time long enough for that young person to get themselves together. I mean, maybe they could spend it on housing, utilities, clothing, public transportation, and maybe you'd have some stipulation as long as this person is pursuing education or pursuing a job training or maintaining steady employment. What do the two of you think of that proposal?
I think it's a brilliant proposal. I think they're doing something very similar in California. And New Yorkers and other organizations really feel that that's the next most important thing in child welfare, which is providing young people aging out of the foster care system with a monthly stipend that is unconditional. They can use it where they want, where they have agency. If we did that for a year or 2 years after a young person ages out of foster care, I truly believe the issues of homelessness, I don't think it would. I think people would still find work, and they would accrue savings and wealth to be able to potentially buy a home one day. I think it would be a game changer, and I really hope it's something that New York adopts. And we are in the early stages of planning a pilot with another partner agency. So,
Demetrius, would that have been helpful for you?
Yeah, definitely.
Who's going to turn down some money, right?
Of course. Yeah. But also with that, some type of financial literacy with this financial support, because a lot of us young people, especially if you get into like Black and brown communities, we're not taught how to manage money, and so we'll be contacting Soroy within a month, like, hey man, I need some more money, and if she says no, we ran out, then we got an attitude. So instead, hey, we're going to give you this with the prerequisite that you also do this maybe once a week financial class, so that you can manage that stipend.
Does New York City have any kind of housing that's specifically set aside for young people who are aging out?
I mean, the government, the local government does provide housing options. I think whether or not in practice it plays out as one would wish is a whole other story, because I do think when you speak with the young people, they will share that there are a whole host of challenges to navigating housing, and it's but I don't know, Demetrius, do you have any thoughts on that?
I know that the housing that I currently reside in, I know that 80% of the apartments is for the general public, and then 20%, the 9th and the 10th floor, are for former foster youth.
Oh, really? Okay.
Have emancipated, left the foster care system, and that has been just so instrumental to my success, being able to have my own nest. So I know that speaking to Jeremy Cahoman, who's the CEO of Children's Village, I know that they're trying to replicate that and other housing developments, which it would be very wise because now we know that, okay, the ninth and the 10th floor for former foster youth, and so we feel like we're not in foster care versus a building that is only for foster youth. So then perhaps maybe there's a sign-in sheet or there's certain parameters. Okay, you can't have a guest after this time, and so it gives it back that foster care, like, oh, I'm back in foster care 5. Instead, the rest of the building is all general public. So I feel like although I've been in that foster care system, I'm acclimating myself to the rest of the public, which is bringing peace.
So what are your plans going forward?
Yeah, so I started, once I came back from India after spending 9 months in India.
What were you doing in India?
Studying meditation and yoga. Once I graduated from NYU in 2019, I was going to go straight to law school and go into politics because that's the ultimate vision and goal. But then I said, you know what, let me go work on my trauma and my healing. And so I started a GoFundMe, raised approximately 17K, and then went to India and Nepal for 9 months to study how I can use meditation and yoga to help me with my trauma and anxiety, etc. And to also foster self-love and the such. So after that journey, I came back and then I started my fostering meditation, which Roy sits on my board. And now my goal with this nonprofit is to bring meditation and yoga to youth in foster care nationally, to help them, and not just the youth, but also their teachers and parents, to bring them all into meditation and yoga to help with their wellness and to foster more communities of people who are breathing, meditating, and healing together. Because I've seen how much meditation and yoga has helped me center myself in tumultuous times such as we're living in now. So just taking more time for myself to heal through my practices and then to bring it to other young people so that they can learn the power of stillness and then apply it to their lives so that, as the Dalai Lama said, if you teach every 8-year-old how to meditate, you can end violence in a generation. And Frederick Douglass once said, it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. I was once I don't want to say I was broken. I just needed that I needed to be responsible for my own healing.
Right.
And meditation and yoga allows me.
Now, how do you support yourself financially now?
I started my nonprofit.
Okay, all right.
I know it's a nonprofit, but this is where you can make a profit from it.
Okay. So, Roya, what do you want to see happen in this area?
You kind of hit it on the head before. I really think that one of the most important pieces of legislation is for young people to receive some type of a unconditional cash transfer, universal basic income upon exiting the foster care system. If I see that, I will feel as if there's enormous progress, because I think it's a big area that I think there just needs to be more support. But I also think that having more support, mental health support for young people aging out of foster care. I think the pandemic, but even pre-pandemic, the amount of issues that have come up, and I think the world is experiencing trauma. I think what we've all gone through, it has impacted everyone. I don't think anybody's the same after what we've all been through. And then if you turn on the news in the last couple of years, these are really hard times. And if you add that to a history of having trauma, I feel like isolation and depression, and having support for young people, like the work that Demetrius is doing. I think too quickly, and he mentioned this before, there is a Band-Aid approach. Let's medicate this child. Let's have them conform. Let's make them sit still in a classroom. If we can start to have more holistic support and allow children to be who they are, I just think we would be in a much better place. So I think the work that Demetrius is doing is a game changer as well. And I think we need to see more creative solutions like that, because that's really what's going to heal children, is having people believe in them, but also providing the tools to heal. And what better way than meditate,
Demetrius, what do you want to say to any young people who may be about to age out of foster care or who have already aged out, to any of them who might be watching this program?
So my message is to strengthen your financial literacy, because financial freedom is freedom, And then also working on your mental health through my ways is meditation and yoga. And that's not enough. I signed up for therapy. I have, I'm drinking more tea, like things that can help you become more healthier mind, body, and spirit, because it's a hard world out there, especially for us who have left the foster care system with the trauma that we have incurred. So now, okay, no one's going to heal you, Demetrius, so you got to heal yourself. What are those things that are working for you? Now go deeper into those practices and don't be afraid to ask for more help if needed.
Well, you're certainly a poster child for how to overcome all those obstacles and to really make a good life. And Soraya, you guys are obviously doing very good work for a segment of the population that really needs it. So thank you for coming and talking to us today. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'd like to thank Soraya Friedman Gonzalez, Executive Director of New Yorkers for Children, and Demetrius Napolitano for joining me today. To learn about our upcoming shows, you can follow us on Twitter at One2One CUNY TV. For the City University of New York and One2One, I'm Cheryl McCarthy.